It's time to mind your business with me, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in to find out how to mind your business with BEDC, special guest entrepreneurs, industry experts, and more. Brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda Business starts here. Well, hello, Tahkeesha.
Hi, Jamillah.
Welcome to Mind Your Business. We're going to be talking today about a webinar that you're going to be facilitating. But before we do that, introduce yourself because it's the first time you've been on here.
Yes, I'm Tahkeesha Welch. I've been with BEDC now for almost a year. Okay. I started last June. Prior to that, I was at Clarion Bank as well as HSBC and Butterfield Bank. I spent most of my career at HSBC for 15 years, where I started as a credit analyst and a relationship manager, but always been working with businesses within the local and international community.
And that's how we met.
Yes, that's how we met.
When you were at HSBC.
Yeah.
So you are a loan portfolio management officer.
Yes.
For BEDC.
Yes.
What is that? What you do?
I basically have been tasked with managing the loan portfolio within BEDC. Mm-hmm. From, obviously from inception, just watching the loans and as they perform until possibly any watch lists or any issues that we may get into. Mm-hmm. During that time, helping to restructure and have conversations with the customers that may be having issues and just determining what we can do to assist them through the process of repaying the loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think within the kind of startup and business community, loans are necessary.
Absolutely.
And so people need funding to get their businesses started. And unfortunately for us, debt seems to be the primary source of capital for a lot of startups.
Yeah.
And so speaking about debt and all of that, not all startups work. Right?
No.
Some end up running into challenges. And I guess that's where you come in, is that even though you're in business and you're doing business, you have now this money that you owe someone.
Yeah.
And so debt can become all-consuming if you let it. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the experiences that you've had over the years, not just with BEDC, but over the years in your banking and working with people as they're dealing, some of the things that you've seen that you would maybe caution people or have them think about prior to taking on the debt?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed, mm-hmm. and especially for startups or even existing businesses normally. But even in the startup phase, sometimes businesses take on less than what they need. That's one of the issues that seems to really cause an issue for a lot of businesses because you're desperate at the time. Mm-hmm. You just need capital. You take anything.
Right.
But it's just not enough to really get you to a place where your business is actually operating in a profitable manner.
Right.
Where it can repay and just operate.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest issues that we have where you're undercapitalized. Mm-hmm. And then we have the other situation where you actually may take too much or you just take it because you qualify. You can.
Yeah.
And then you just don't manage it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another issue that we're experiencing or we see regularly. The other thing that I see globally and locally, and we've been talking about it a lot locally, not just within BEDC, is the lack of the financial acumen within the businesses. Mm-hmm. So just understanding your cash flow, what you can pay, how you can pay it, how long you can pay it. So that's the other issue that we're experiencing right now. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody is waking up to it and we're trying to educate the business community on that. And I think, with that, you'll see people get better at paying that or not even just shying away from getting that or just being confident in obtaining that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big issue that we have right now.
Yeah. I would agree. I mean, I feel like what you said is exactly right. When you're starting a business and you need the capital, of course you need the capital, but taking the capital when it's not enough can sometimes not be a good thing, right? You're starting behind the eight ball before you even get a chance to and now you owe somebody. Mm-hmm. Right? Now you owe somebody. Yeah. So what would you say to maybe someone who's considering starting a business? You've looked at the numbers. You see they need X, but all they can get is maybe Y. What would you say to them? Should they go forward or what would you say?
That's an interesting question because I actually saw that not too long ago, and I actually challenged the person to actually go back and look at the business. I'm not telling them that they couldn't start it. This is not a good business.
Right.
However, maybe you should look at this, or maybe you should start this way, and maybe that's a plan for growth. So sometimes that's actually how to do it.
Yeah.
It may not be the way you want to start, but you may have to just take a step back and really think about it.
Yeah.
And business has changed drastically over the last couple of years.
It sure has.
So that's the other issue, right? So you really have to think about, how you're starting, what capital is required, whether marketing is even required, whether you can pay for that. Just really think about how you're actually spending your money.
Yeah. And sometimes that's a hard conversation to have, right? Because entrepreneurs, they're like, what you talking about? I'm ready now. Let's go now.
Entrepreneurs are dreamers, right?
And that's what we want. We need it. But I think it is important to understand what all the things that are going to be required to actually get this thing off. And you're going into it because you want it to work. You want to make money. And sometimes delaying the start might be the right thing.
Yeah.
Because maybe if you can only get X from the bank or from BEDC and you need Y, maybe if you take 6 months to gain the difference, now when you start, you're in a better position to actually hit the ground running.
Yeah. And of course, with startups, that's the other thing, right? Skin in the game. I always say that, because people should actually have some skin in the game.
You should.
So you really should think it out and take some time.
Oh, it's all on me?
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it makes a difference, right? So I encourage people to actually invest in, because they're asking us to invest in it, or whoever they're borrowing money from. Yeah. You're asking them to invest, so you should also be willing to take the same investment.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Sage advice. And you've been doing this for years, so you know. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this upcoming, it's actually a webinar, so it's online.
Yeah.
Demystifying Debt, right? Talk to me a little bit about what you want to kind of cover in this. And it's a 2-part series. So.
It's a 2-part series. The name of it is interesting, but and we say demystifying because we believe that it's not a bad thing.
Right.
And obviously at BEDC, one of the things we want to do are educate and guide and assist. So we want to be able to show the business owners that getting debt or having debt is not a bad thing.
Right.
But so that's why we're going to demystify it as best we can.
Right.
So I think in the first part, what we're looking to do is just discuss debt, what's available to you, how do you actually ask questions about debt, where do you start, what is debt, and I say the various types of debt because there are several different things that are available to you locally, and I don't believe people are really aware of it. They just run to the bank or they, and that's it. Really. Right. Or come running to us and want us to give them 100% of the money. But no, there's other ways to
actually. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. So I want to discuss that and also just, asking the right questions, asking for terms. Even with your rent, I mean, that's a bill that you have every month. You go back and you ask the landlord. I just saw something on the news not too long ago about credit card debt in the U.S., how it's soaring. And what they're finding consumers are doing, they're actually going and asking the banks to lower their interest rates.
Right.
And they're saying yes.
Yeah.
But and I was just like, oh, okay. But that's just as simple as it is. They'll say yes or no. But a lot of people are afraid to ask.
Yes.
Terms. That's something else that we'd like to encourage, and maybe not COD, because I see a lot of people using all their cash to pay for their services up front.
Yeah.
But you can just ask for terms, 30 days, 60 days. Some people would do 90 days.
Yeah.
And that helps you on the long run. The other thing is understanding your cash flow.
Yeah.
So whether you can pay the debt, how much can you pay on a monthly basis? Or do you have a surplus? Can you pay extra?
Right.
Just having a full understanding of what your business can actually do. And you will need that.
Yeah.
You will need it because you're not going to want to use, even if you have the money, you're not going to want to use all your money up front to fund the business. So, yeah.
I think that's interesting because I do think, coming from America initially, it's very much a credit-based system, right? And so if you don't have credit, you can't get nothing.
Nothing.
You'd be like, can I buy a bag of chips? They'd be like, well, you got a credit? No? Oh, sorry, we can't help you. So and then coming to Bermuda and living here for so long, it's a different dynamic. Like, people do not live on credit.
They're scared
It's like,
of it.
yeah, if you don't have the money, you just don't get it until you have the money.
Yeah.
And so it's completely different. And so I can see how maybe people don't see how they need to manage that credit, because debt, it's you owe somebody something, right? They're giving you money, and then you're promising to pay them back that money at a later date. And so I don't think it's intuitive maybe for some Bermudians, and so that's where you're challenged. They're like, what you mean? I'm paying back, but I'm gonna pay them back when I have the money.
I think you're correct. It's a very old school mentality too, because my grandparents they built their house brick by brick, took 15 years, and they done it themselves out of their pocket.
Right.
So I remember when, I was going to get my mortgage, and my grandfather was like, what? $800,000? I was 26 at the time. And he just thought it was crazy. But I felt like, I said, no, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to work through it. And that's another thing. I mean, the way that I was able to get my house. Just thinking outside the box. So we need to really dig down into that as well. We only have an hour with this webinar.
I'm like, you done said a lot of stuff. How we gonna get through all of this?
It's a lot. And one of the things I think I really want to do is just get people's mind going. So they can always come back to me, and we can always have further conversations. But just to get them thinking, having the conversation, having the confidence to have that conversation. So that's what I really want to accomplish.
And I think it's important, because you did say, like, confidence is key, because I do think that people, because they're not really that familiar with debt and credit and all that, that they think they have to just accept the terms as there is. Like, you'd be surprised. People like, you mean I can ask for a different interest rate? And I can ask? And they assume that what is being presented is how it is. And it has to be that way. And there is room for negotiation.
There is definitely room for negotiation. And if you're not sure, there are a lot of people out there that can assist you with that. But there's also the internet and everything. There's so much information out there, and you should actually educate yourself on different things that you can actually ask for.
Right. So who do you think should be attending the webinar? Who should be signing up?
I actually think it's a webinar that anybody can attend. But obviously, if you have debt currently, you should actually listen in or come in and ask questions, and just listen to what we have to say. The other thing that I've really seen, and since I've worked here, is a lot of people acquire debt from the pandemic. And they're having a hard time because they've actually had to change the operations of their business from the pandemic for whatever reason, because maybe their services, things have changed, it's not many people come through your door, whatever the reason is. And they're running away from the obligations. So we want to make it easy for people to have that conversation. So I hope that's what we get out of it. But that's my aim, to get more people calling in and asking questions, and even asking for a restructure, or saying, this is what I need. But I think we really need to do that.
Because the thing I would say is, burying your head in the sand and pretending it doesn't exist doesn't make it go away.
No.
It's still going to be there.
It is. And I've done it. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
We're all guilty. Be like, guilty as charged.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Be like, maybe if I just don't pay attention, then I'll have to think about it. But it's still there.
It's still there. And that's what I mean. So it's important to say that.
Yeah.
That I've done it.
Right.
We've been through it.
Yeah.
I've worked through it. Still working through it. I still have a mortgage.
Yeah.
So we're all still there, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand and work together. We can network. We can use each other, different strategies that other businesses have used, and they're still using.
Yeah.
Because most businesses that are in existence still have some form of credit or debt.
Of course they do, yeah.
Whether it's a credit card, overdraft, something. So it's just important to have those conversations.
And I think another thing, which you would be familiar with, is the type of debt. Like you said, there's so many different versions. Well, I won't say so many, but there are more than one.
Yeah.
Right? So you can have a loan, you can have a letter of credit, you can have a credit card, you can have these things, and they each have can help you. They can be a tool. You know what I mean? As opposed to you thinking, I have to get this so that I can do this. How do you leverage this tool to help you to deliver on whatever it is your business or your business objective is?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, if people can reframe how they look at debt.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
They can start to foster a different type of relationship with it.
Yeah.
It's a means to an end,
It
right?
is. And it might be the name, right? Because I mean, as soon as you hear the word debt, you're like, you know what I mean?
I owe somebody something.
But I think you're right. Like some products are really, like I think the lot of credit's probably one of the most amazing products, but a lot of people just don't know anything about it.
They don't know.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, for retail businesses, it's something that you should have.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just that, educating and understanding what it actually is and using it to your advantage.
Okay, so talk to me about some logistics. Like, when is it?
Okay.
What time? How do people sign up?
It's May the 30th from 12:30 to 1:30. It's a webinar. We're looking to have myself and a few panelists. Mm-hmm. People can ask questions through the actual webinar. Mm-hmm. And we'll have people actually getting the questions and pass them off. And hopefully we're able to answer. If not, we'll get back to everybody. You can sign up on the website, BEDC.bm under, events? Yes. So you could click and register right there. I think I'm also going to send out a blast.
Okay.
An email blast to, I have a really good list of people that I'm working with on a daily basis, and I want them to come. Yeah. And I want them to, whether they, it's anonymous. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to see you in there. Yeah. And even when you ask your questions, that's important to say, too, that it is anonymous.
And I think that's important, like you said, to say, because some people are nervous. Yeah. Like, they don't want people to know that they have debt. Yeah. It's like, we know. Yeah. Everybody got some, okay? Yeah. But in the event that you don't still feel a way, because it's a webinar and you chose this format specifically to allow people to remain anonymous so that they feel comfortable typing their questions in the chat and getting honest answers that can support them and help them, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing this for, right?
That's exactly what we're doing it for.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the reason for having a webinar as opposed to a seminar.
Yeah.
So I really want people to feel comfortable with asking the questions. And like I said, I'm available anytime after or during, and even the panelists. So, feel free to ask, and we'll do what we can to answer the question.
All right. Well, I like it. Now, is there a cost to attend?
It's free.
Oh!
It's a free webinar. Okay. Yeah, okay. This is really, it's our first one, my first one. Really want to get it out there, demystify, and start having the conversation. If these things continues, I'm hoping they will, and get bigger, and the conversations go from webinars to networking and actually having the conversations with business owners, standing in front of, the audience and giving them strategies. That's what I wanted to graduate to. Yeah. So, but this one is free.
Okay.
So
well,
take advantage.
Nobody has any reason not to sign up.
No.
And I think it's important because you're making the information available. You're creating a safe space for people to be able to talk about some of the challenges that they have and ask for solutions on how to correct. Yeah. One thing that I would like to just communicate, which I'm sure you will even go into further on the webinar, is that it may seem unsurmountable for some people. You know what I mean? It could be so heavy that you just like, I just can't even deal. I can't figure out a way out of it. Yeah. But having the conversation, looking at what you have to work with and what you have to, and then even in some instances I've seen where people were able to renegotiate what they owe based on what they're earning and come into some sort of solution where you can tackle it little by little. You're chipping away at it, but at least you're addressing it.
Yeah. And that's what I'm doing now. I mean, we're restructuring or trying to restructure for the clients that are having a hard time. But the other point that you made was the stress. Yes. Right? Because it is extremely stressful. So we want to kind of take that stress away, because the only way you're going to pay it back is if you kind of really deal with it and you just relax a little bit and let somebody help you talk about it, restructure, whatever. And then you can actually concentrate on making the money to actually pay it back. Right. But when you're stressed out, you're not really managing the business as well as you should. No, you're not. Because you're just worried all the time, So that's the other thing, to remove the stress and just assist. Yeah.
And I feel like, sometimes when you have a plan in place, a payment plan, and X amount is going here, I got to pay my rent, I got to pay, and so that everything is being addressed, it does release you from that stress. Yeah. Because you're like, I am actively taking care of this thing. Yeah. I think it's funny sometimes because, you're like, okay, I need this money because I'm going to use it to get my business started and do these things. But then it's like, but you got to pay that back,
Yes,
right?
that's the thing.
And it's almost like you forget.
You do forget. You do forget. And I've seen that. People just go missing. I'm like, you use the money. You started your business. Now we have to work on you getting it, paying it back.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's just the excitement, the dream.
Yeah.
I want to get going. I want to start my business. And then, like I said, coming out of the pandemic, then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So some people really got stuck and they need to borrow more money just to keep the business afloat. So now we need to come back to the drawing board, think about it, restructure it, have a conversation, and get this debt repaid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's interesting to talk about strategies that you can actually implement to get the debt paid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you've seen where people, it's like, do you need to borrow more money?
And
to
I get that, and I've seen it where it actually is important, but that's not to just necessarily pay off debt. Sometimes it may be for growth of business.
Okay.
To actually make more money to get the obligations paid. So I've seen that, but it has to be a really strong case.
Yeah.
But that's not really what you're doing, because all you're doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul, right?
Right.
Exactly. So it's not really the best strategy.
Yeah.
But I get why you would want to do it at that moment, because you just want to get rid of something, or just maybe have one payment with one place and get rid of the 10 payments you have over here. So I get that as well. So debt consolidation, all of that.
Okay.
So we can look at things like that, but it has to make sense,
right,
for the individual business.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that the important part is to start having those conversations, because sometimes you don't know.
No.
You don't know what you don't know. So you're like thinking you're doing something, but if you can have a conversation with someone, then you can actually look at where you're working with and make a plan, put a plan in place to kind of either get you to where you need to be to grow the business, and then certainly, like you said, to consolidate debt or something to make it more manageable. If that makes more sense.
Yes.
So let's talk about part 2, because this is part 1, right?
Part 1.
Which is free, y'all. So don't be like, what happened? I missed it. Go ahead and sign up on BEDC.BM March
30th.
No,
May 30th.
I don't went backwards. It's May 30th. It's going too fast. May 30th from 12:30 to 1:30.
Yeah.
So it's an hour that you got to get through a whole lot of information.
Yeah, it is an hour. Yeah.
Which is why we're doing 2 parts.
And we may do 3 if needed.
If need be.
If needed,
okay.
We can certainly, put on another one. So if that's how it goes, that's how it goes.
So what's part 2 focusing on?
Part 2 is definitely really going to work on, or just focus on, strategies.
Okay.
So this one is a lot of information, probably a lot of conversation, more just us feeding clients with what we feel, or just talking about that, talking about products, talking about things like that. But in part 2, I really want to dig deep and say, give them actual live scenarios.
Right.
Like, this is what some businesses have done. This is what we've seen work. This is what we can assist with. So that's what we want to do in part 2. And the hope is to have business owners given that information.
Right.
So this one will be me and other professionals, but we're hoping to have entrepreneurs in the second one, actually telling other entrepreneurs, this is what
strategies they use.
Yes.
Yeah. I always say it's sometimes better received from someone who's walked the walk.
Yeah.
Mind you, most of everybody here has been an entrepreneur, is currently an entrepreneur. And like you say, we all have debt.
We all have
debt.
So
been there, done that. Yeah. So I think it's comforting to know that the people that you're going to be speaking with are not speaking out of turn. Like, they've actually experienced the same things they're telling you. But then in part 2, to hear it from an actual entrepreneur who's currently in business and either had to deal with managing their way out of debt, or is currently doing that, and the business is still thriving and things like that, I think will be a nice way to cap it off.
Yeah.
So we talked about who should be there, and what'd she say? Everybody?
Everybody.
I think that's what she said.
Area and anybody.
And we talked about the cost. It's free, so there's no reason why. And the other benefit, I think, of it being a webinar is that, let's say, God forbid, like, why wouldn't you be there at 12:30? But let's just say something happened because life, right?
Yeah.
It is going to be recorded.
Yes, it's
right?
going to be recorded.
And so you can receive a recording, and then you can follow up and look at things and still get access to the information. So the key, though, is that you have to register. So
yeah, you have to register.
You have to go on BDC.bm
and register.
So that we know
register.
that you're coming. So who are some of the people that are going to be in part 1 with you?
So right now, unfortunately, it's just myself, and I do have Sharina Thomas. That's also going to be part of the webinar panelists. We're still waiting confirmation on 2 others.
Okay.
But like I said, there'll be professionals, there'll be bookkeepers or accountants, and people that are actually helping other businesses through this process.
Right.
So like I said, part 2 will be the actual business owners and entrepreneurs, but this time we'll actually get some information from the professionals, free information.
Yeah.
So you should take advantage of it. So that's what I'm looking to do in this first one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I think, look, I might have to sit in on this one and be like.
And it's strategies that you could possibly use in your personal life as well, right? So yeah.
I think that's interesting. It's a good analogy to make is that even though it's business debt, the way in which you manage it is similar to the way in which you manage your household. Like you have a mortgage that you have to pay back. You have other debt that may be associated. So how do you manage that? You have a set amount of money that you receive every month. So how do you take that money and make sure that all of the things that you owe are covered?
Yeah.
And the same thing for the business.
Yeah.
Right?
And it is exactly the same thing. And I get it. Because some months I just want to not pay. Trust me. And want to be irresponsible. And it's a very hard thing to do at times.
Right.
Especially, with everything. And Bermuda's a very materialistic place. So we all want to just get involved in things and have a good time. But, you have obligations.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of that. And you have to always prepare to pay your obligations as best you can. And when you can't, pick up the phone. That's the other thing. Stop running from that.
That's the thing.
Because most people, I'm not saying that, there will not be consequences, but at least you've had the conversation.
Right.
And it's probably far better than waiting or not paying at all.
Right.
So we want to encourage that kind of stuff as well. Because things do happen.
It's true.
Life happens.
And most people, I think, if you share with them the life that has happened, most people are understanding.
Absolutely.
And will try and work with you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the lender wants to get repaid.
Yes, they want to get repaid. Even the bank. And I've heard people, they say, oh, they'll just take my house or car. I said, no, trust me.
That's
don't.
The last resort.
That is the last resort.
Yeah, they don't really want
so
it.
they'll work with you, but you have to be forthcoming.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to work as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I know that and I say this all the time, and I just had this conversation, as a business owner, you want to be profitable.
Yes.
And you want your business to thrive.
Yeah.
And you want to survive through it. So, let's have these conversations and how you can do it.
So tell me my top takeaways from the seminar. Like, I'm coming, I'm registered, I'm going to be there. But what is it that you hope people will take away from having attended?
Okay.
The webinar. I keep saying seminar.
I'm hoping that people don't see debt as the big bad wolf in the room.
Right.
I'm hoping that they understand that there's good debt and bad debt. And I think if you understand the product or the debt that you're acquiring, then it's easier to repay it. The other thing is I hope people are more confident in asking questions, asking for help, asking for terms, and just ask. And just having that conversation about what they may need at the time. And the other part is really understanding that people have to understand the cash flow, their financials, the operations, every dollar, every penny, every cent from your business. I've asked probably every time I meet a new business owner when I worked at the bank, and even whilst I've worked here, I've asked how much from every dollar has to go back in your business in order for your business to continue to operate. And most people don't know. I know. And that's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say it like that, I mean, it sounds weird, and I'm saying, okay, so how much each dollar that you make, how much of that dollar has to go back in the business? And you should know that.
Yeah.
So we need to actually hammer that home.
Yeah.
And that will help you in everything.
So I'm already thinking of the part 3 and the part 4 and the part 5. Because I'm like, you're right, I don't know. So how about you help me figure that out?
Yeah.
So is that an opportunity then? Because you start the business, you're passionate about it, but if you can't answer that question, that may be why you're in the predicament that you're in.
Absolutely.
And so how do you reset then? Like what has to happen for them to understand that piece?
I think if you ask that simple question and you're literally sitting there and you're contemplating it, you have to then go back and say, okay, how much do I really need to operate this business? And once you know that, then you can tell if you're undercapitalized, if you're not making enough money, if you need to pivot into a new product or whatever. Marketing, margins, all of that. So, it's important to know that. I can't really give you the formula as to how you actually determine that.
That's the next one, y'all.
That's the next one. But
stay tuned.
That is very important to understand.
It is.
So we can do 10 of those.
Oh, we can.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like with our multi-week offerings and workshops, there may be an opportunity to further delve into that. Mm-hmm. But I think this particular webinar is for those that currently have debt. And need either assistance figuring out how to manage it, understanding what their options are, like you said. And so we're encouraging all of you, because we all have it. We have already established that. to sign up online. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You were great. Listen, we're gonna have to make this a regular thing. But you'll be back to talk about part 2, because we'll be able to talk about some of the entrepreneurs that are participating. But again, May 30th, 12:30 to 1:30. Log on to BEDC.bm to register. It is free, so no excuses. And once you're registered, you will receive the recording of it once it's concluded.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Tahkeesha.
you so much. Thank you, Jamillah.
We minded our business today. Because remember, if you don't, who will? Thanks for tuning in to Mind Your Business with me, your host, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in next week, Thursday at 4 p.m. because if you don't mind your business, who will? Mind Your Business is brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda Business starts here.